Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. Good morning, Chairman, Presidential Communications Team. Good morning, gentlemen of the press. Good morning. We're already in the noon. Good afternoon, our listening speakers online. Today we have an important personality in continuation of our series of special briefings coordinated by the Presidential Communication Team. These briefings are to enlighten stakeholders to know salient things that some key government organizations are doing, and it's another platform to engage stakeholders on government actions in order to get a better deal for citizenry. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo recently described human trafficking as a transnational organized crime of extraordinary magnitude that has continued to plague the nation with the attendant negative narrative. He added that it's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise with criminals exploiting their victims over and over. The National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, established in 2003 as a specific multidisciplinary crime-fighting agency and Nigeria's focal institution to fight this scourge. The General of NAPTIP, Dr. Fatima Waziri-Azi, is here to brief the press on key updates on the efforts of the agency towards the arrest and prosecution of individuals involved in human trafficking, in domestic violence, and in other related offenses in Nigeria. She will also speak on the impact that the National Action Plan on Human Trafficking in Nigeria 2022 to 2026, approved by the Federal Executive Council recently in February. She will tell us what impact this plan is expected to have on the fight against human trafficking. Of course, she is here with the team. Later in the day, we'll get to know them, and she might choose to introduce them before she goes on. On this note, I'd like to invite the DG to speak along the lines that I've premised. DG, ma'am.
Mr. Femi Additional, Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. Malam Garbashil, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Publicity. Mrs. Loretta Onoche, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Social Media. Officers from the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Before I start, let me very quickly introduce some of the directors sitting with me. I have Mr. Josiah, who is the Director of Public Enlightenment. And next to Mr. Josiah is Mrs. Akomolafe, who is the Director for Counseling and Rehabilitation. And next to Mrs. Akomolafe, we have Mr. Tokolo, who is the Director of Investigation. Now, may I use this opportunity to convey the sincere appreciation of the officers of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, to His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, through the Presidential Communications Team, for the privilege of using this platform of the State House Briefing series to speak on the status of the fight against human trafficking in Nigeria. To put in perspective, every year, thousands of people travel across the world in search of a better life, and amongst these people are victims of human trafficking. Trafficking in persons is a crime against humanity that has badly affected the image of our dear country, Nigeria. It involves the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of threat, force, abduction, fraud, for the sole purpose of exploitation. Many victims are stranded in a number of West African countries as they cannot move further to Europe and living under dangerous conditions. In Mali alone, no fewer than 20,000 young Nigerian women and girls are trapped, living in shanties in the mining areas where they are sexually exploited. Human trafficking, as we already know, is a multi-billion-dollar global industry and second amongst transnational organized crime that exerts high human cost, leaving many trapped in exploitative situations worldwide. Even though accurate data is difficult to come by due to the clandestine nature of the crime, International Labour Organization estimates more than 40.3 million victims are currently trapped in different forms of human trafficking across the globe, with Nigerians accounting for a great number. Now, what are the different forms of human trafficking? It includes sexual exploitation, forced labor, debt bondage, domestic servitude. We have organ removal, child labor, and slavery and other slavery-like activities. Some drivers of trafficking in persons include poverty, lack of economic and educational opportunities, especially for young people, greed and peer pressure, the insatiable desire for greener pastures, ignorance on the part of family and children at the risk involved in trafficking. We also have conflicts and wars, as well as the porous borders. Now, talking about the nature and scope of human trafficking. In Nigeria, it is both internal and external, with a higher rate of internal trafficking. And internal trafficking involves trafficking of a person within a state, that is from one community to another, and also trafficking across state lines. But because attention is usually spotlighted on external trafficking, it creates the impression that we have more of external trafficking going on in Nigeria. The purpose of internal trafficking is usually for sexual exploitation, domestic servitude, forced labor, debt bondage, child labor, illegal adoption, and buying and selling of human beings. External trafficking of persons, on the other hand, is carried out outside our borders, and sexual exploitation, labor exploitation, and organ trafficking are the major purpose of external trafficking. Human trafficking in Nigeria is not a problem, ladies and gentlemen. It is a national crisis, as the volume is enormous and widespread. No state is immune to it, as each state has its own peculiarity. Trends in human trafficking include orphanage trafficking. This is where orphanages recruit children to their homes to attract donations from unsuspecting members of the public and also good willing organizations. We have baby factories. We have the use of victims for other crimes, like victims of human trafficking are sometimes also used to traffic drugs. We have a new emerging trend called QNet or QLink, and this is where mostly young boys are trafficked for the sole purpose of committing online fraud. We have illegal adoption. We have what they call cryptic pregnancy. Then, of course, we have buying and selling of children. We also have a trend called hunting, and this involves a trafficker actively pursuing a victim, typically on social media. So we have instances of people being hunted and promised jobs of modeling abroad. And of course, when they get to the destination, it's definitely not a modeling job. It's usually something else. Then there's the trend called phishing, when perpetrators post fake job advertorials and fake scholarships and wait for potential victims to respond. In NAPTIP, we get this a lot. then adverts on non-existing football clubs in some Middle East countries, then using global sports fiestas to lure victims as well. Then in fulfillment of the provisions of the United Nations Convention on Transnational Organized Crime and its protocol, in July 2003, Nigeria enacted the Trafficking in Persons Prohibition Law Enforcement and Administration Act. This legislation was amended in 2005 and reenacted in 2015 as the Trafficking in Persons Prohibition, Establishment and Administration Act of 2015. The legislation created NAPTIP, a law enforcement agency mandated to tackle all scourges of human trafficking in Nigeria, with the powers to investigate and prosecute all forms of trafficking in persons. NAPTIP is one of the agencies under the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, and NAPTIP is also empowered to implement the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, which is only applicable to the FCT of 2015. In carrying out our work, we base that on 5-pronged approaches of prevention, protection, prosecution, policy, and partnership. In terms of operational structure, NAPTIP has 27 offices across Nigeria. So we have the headquarters here in Abuja, we have 9 zonal commands, we have 11 state commands, and we have 7 liaison offices, as well as 10 operational shelters across the country. Zonal commands, state commands, and liaison offices are situated. Then over the years, NAPTIP has achieved many milestones. Now, in terms of policy, under the leadership of the Honorable Minister of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, 3 key policy documents were recently approved by the Federal Executive Council, and they are the National Action Plan on Human Trafficking in Nigeria, 2022 to 2026, approved on the 23rd of February 2022. And this plan will guide all interventions in the area of trafficking in persons in Nigeria for the next 5 years. We also have the National Policy on Protection and Assistance of Trafficked Persons in Nigeria, which was also approved by FEC on the 3rd March 2022, as well as the Protocol for Identification, Safe Return, and Rehabilitation of Trafficked Persons, approved on the same 3rd March 2022. Other policies include, we have the National Gender Policy, which was developed and launched last year, March. We also have guidelines for the protection of children in formal care, guidelines on national referral mechanism. Then in 2019, the Honorable Attorney General issued what we call Regulation 2019. So that's basically the Trafficking in Persons Control of Activities and Centers Organizations Regulation 2019, which empowers NAPTIP to regulate, control, and issue clearance certificates to all travel agents, tour operators, and intending travelers for educational excursion, recruitment of labor, sporting activities, cultural or music excursion or competitions, and all organizations, shelters, and homes offering services for the purpose of the rehabilitation of trafficked persons. So at the beginning of this year, we created an online portal in compliance with the Executive Order 1 on ease of doing business. So the system is digitized from registration to payment and also issuance of certificates. Then under prevention, we carry out awareness campaigns and sensitizations deliberately designed to educate people about human trafficking and what drives it, especially at the subnational level and amongst urban poor communities and also in the rural areas. So we do this through community-centered awareness creation, survivors advocacy campaign, school campaigns, digital media campaigns, and traditional media campaigns. We've commenced the establishment of what we call the Anti-Trafficking in Person and Sexual Violence Against Persons Vanguards in secondary school. So our goal is to establish this Vanguard in the 110 unity schools in Nigeria. And we commenced last year in Federal Government Girls College, Abaji, and we've also gotten approval from the Federal Ministry of Education to commence the establishment across the country. And basically it's just a platform for young people to know about the issues involved in trafficking in persons and also sexual against persons, and also use that platform to educate their peers. We are also rolling out the trafficking in person curricula in all the schools nationwide. We've infused trafficking in persons issues into the minimum standard of colleges of education with the collaboration of the National Commission of Colleges of Education. We are working on establishing a regional training academy and skill acquisition center. We already have a training resource center at the Federal Secretariat that we use for our regular trainings. We now have a 24/7 call center and a launch of the 627 short code. And between September 2021 to May 5th, 2022, the center has received a total of 1,739 calls. So basically, this is just one of our reporting channels. We have other reporting channels. So besides the call center, people send us email. They also can contact us via our various social media handles. We have revived the TV docuseries montage called NAPTIP on the Move. It airs every Friday on NTA DSTV 257. So it's basically a platform for us to also sensitize Nigerians on the issues of trafficking in persons and violence against persons. We have revived the quarterly newsletter called NAPTIP on the Move. We've launched the program called The Conversation with NAPTIP. It was launched in December, and it's something that we plan to have regularly. And it's basically a digital platform using virtual platforms and live streamed via all our social media platforms. So it just gives us the avenue to directly communicate with our stakeholders, our partners, and general public. We tell them, we educate them on the work we are doing, and we get feedback. Let them tell us the kind of NAPTIP they want to see, and just add to give us observations on the work we do. We do carry out continuous capacity building and sensitization for various stakeholders and partners on trafficking, especially, for example, the media. We had one for the media last year, December, which was supported by one of our partners. So basically, we work with journalists that work around human trafficking issues. We are also currently working with the Nigerian Union for Road and Transport Workers. We are sensitizing luxury bus owners because we know that with the surge of internal trafficking, most of these movements are done by road. So it's also very important for us to educate the drivers and even passengers. So we are doing that right now. Then also judges and prosecutors, and we are working with faith-based organizations. We do periodic research works into the causes, trends, and patterns of trafficking in persons. Then under protection, since inception, NAPTIP has rescued, sheltered, and rehabilitated 17,727 victims of human trafficking. And out of this figure, we have over 4,000 males and over 13,000 females, over 8,000 children, and 8,000 adults. We have over 15,000 Nigerians and 1,805 non-Nigerians. So as we have the trend of Nigerians being trafficked out of Nigeria, we also have reports of non-Nigerians being trafficked into Nigeria. And we have a number of non-Nigerians that were rescued in the past from China, Libya, Lebanon. Recently, we rescued somebody from Cambodia, this year, also Burundi. Niger, December, we rescued a number of children from Niger as well. Then a total of 394 victims have gone through our shelters between January 2022 to date. So at our shelters, we'll provide them, of course, we'll provide them with sheltering, we'll provide them with medical support, we'll provide them with psychosocial support as well as legal assistance. And since inception of NAPTIP, NAPTIP has sponsored 16 victims of human trafficking to university across the country. 2 of them actually graduated last year. And out of the 16, we have 3 currently working with the agency. Then we have just a disaggregated data of Nigerian victims that have been rescued and supported by NAPTIP over the years. Then in terms of prosecution, we've had a total of 9,813 cases reported, over 8,000 suspected traffickers arrested. As at today, we have a total of 513 convictions, 15 convictions in the year 2022. So just yesterday, we had 2 convictions from our Benin Zonal Command and Benue Zonal Command. We have 261 ongoing cases in various courts across the country, and we have 11 ongoing mutual legal assistance cases. And out of these 11, we currently have 2 in court, one from Spain and the other one from Belgium. Then in terms of partnership, NAPTIP collaborates with local, regional, and international stakeholders to ensure the elimination and prevention of the root causes of human trafficking. International cooperation between October and December 2021, Nigeria signed bilateral agreements with the Republic of Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast, and in December we also signed a memorandum of understanding with the Republic of Niger. We have pending MOUs with the Gambia. The one with the Gambia will be scheduled to be signed in June, and we also have with South Africa. The agency has inaugurated task force against human trafficking in 20 states, and this is just to allow us to devolve our activities to the subnational level. So this is a partnership between the state government and NAPTIP itself, and the state task forces are co-chaired by NAPTIP and the state attorney general. So we've inaugurated in 20 states. We actually have 21, but Edo State inaugurated theirs. Then this is just the list of states that have state task forces. Then in terms of partnership, still on partnership, NAPTIP is in partnership with Facebook and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in the United States to enhance trafficking and diligent investigation of all cases relating to online child abuse, human trafficking, and all other related crimes. The agency has the sole unrestricted access to millions of information across the world that will help tackle online recruitment, trafficking, and exploitation of victims. It will also help detect persons who use social media platforms to electronically distribute pornographic materials to either blackmail or exploit children. So between September 2021 and May 5th, 2022, the agency has received a total of 27,094 reports from Facebook on sextortion, that's child exploitation, from Nigeria using the different social media platforms. Now, due to the increase in state and interstate trafficking and buying and selling of children, and also the issues of cryptic pregnancy, NAPTIP has also concluded partnership with the same Facebook to set up what we call Amber Alert Nigeria, whereby Facebook sends alerts to targeted Facebook community to help find missing children in Nigeria on time, real time. So this initiative, which is second in Africa by Facebook, will deliver Amber Alerts to people's news feeds in targeted search area after a child has been abducted. Details about the missing child will be sent to people who use Facebook within approximately 160 kilometers radius of the search area where the child was last seen. Amber Alert to be launched in June here in Abuja. Then we have the Joint Border Task Force. In September 2015, the Nigerian and UK government formed the Joint Border Task Force to tackle cross-border crimes on human trafficking, drugs and money laundering, mainly between the UK and Nigeria. So NAPTIP has JBTF in Lagos, in Benin, and in Kano. And we have a total of 20 officers that work with the JBTF. And over the years, several joint operations have been carried out with successful apprehension of traffickers and rescue of victims. And this effort has led to a number of mutual legal assistance, high-profile cases. Now, just to share a geographic prevalence of trafficking in persons in Nigeria, in the North Central, we have a lot of domestic servitude cases. We have forced labor and we have bonded labor. For the Northeast, the issues there are also domestic servitude. We have orphanage trafficking, buying and selling of children. For the Northwest, it's a lot of domestic servitude as well, then sale of babies. For the South-South, we have domestic servitude, we have buying and selling of children, we have bonded labor, we have trafficking through waterways to Burkina Faso, then we have sexual exploitation. For the Southeast, we have domestic servitude, baby factories, cryptic pregnancies, buying and selling of children, urban to urban and rural to urban trafficking in persons for sexual exploitation. Then for the Southwest, we have domestic servitude, we have forced labor, we have foreign travel for sexual exploitation. Then for the FCT, we have a lot of orphanage trafficking, we have trafficking in sports, then we'll have child exploitation. In terms of challenges, the ever-evolving nature of trafficking in persons remains a challenge. For instance, besides oath-taking, traffickers now make their victims swear nude on arrival at destination countries, and these video recordings are used to threaten victims if they do not cooperate. With the COVID-19, there is a shift from physical recruitment to virtual recruitment, with an increase in fake online job advertorials as well as fake scholarships. Also, the relationship between suspects and victims poses a challenge to effective investigation and prosecution, as victims are unwilling to testify against the traffickers since they are sometimes relatives or friends. And this has seriously hampered our prosecutorial efforts and conviction rates. Jurisdiction is also a challenge to prosecutors due to the transnational nature of trafficking in persons. Human rights violations may have occurred over a period of time and across different jurisdictions. Then we have some elements that create vulnerability to human trafficking that are culturally accepted as a way of life. For instance, child labor and domestic servitude. Then lack of cooperation from the source and vulnerable communities who, due to ignorance, believe the traffickers are helping and should therefore be protected from NAPTIP. Then of course we have socioeconomic issues, and these issues are issues that the agency has no direct control of, and they include unemployment, poverty, breakdown in family values and grade. We have low crime reporting. The public most times do not report incidents of trafficking in persons, and this reduces the chances of tracing and arresting the suspect. Inadequate knowledge of human trafficking by some sister law enforcement agencies. As a result, they tend to use the criminal code in handling human trafficking cases rather than refer these cases to NAPTIP. Unavailability of lawyers to take up civil cases on behalf of victims on pro bono basis, thus making it difficult for victims to get compensation from their traffickers. As a result of the renewed visibility of the agency, a new challenge has also emerged. People cry wolf in order to get urgent assistance from the agency, thereby putting a lot of strain on the agency's resources. Then insecurity is also a challenge, and it hampers the agency's work in terms of operations, sensitizations, rescue, and assistance. So as I conclude, it is important to point out that trafficking in persons has become an issue of global concern, dominating public discourse at every forum, which is why we must continue to spotlight issues of human trafficking. I implore everyone to please show solidarity and support in preventing this horrible crime. Victims of human trafficking need our empathy and support. Stigmatization of victims should be discouraged on all fronts. We should treat victims and not as criminals. Greater success would demand greater engagement, not only from the government of Nigeria, but of all of society. I therefore implore continued support from all stakeholders, as everyone has a responsibility. This is an issue which must concern everyone, every community, and every business, because it is in many ways the yardstick of a just and equitable society. Thank you very much.
No, sister, we are coming from church. One girl just met me. He say he have a very travel and he's sending some girls. And I say, which kind of work the person we can do in that place? Now told me that different work is there, like boutique, where there's to sell clothes, food, many one. He can ask me, say, which one we choose inside? And I told her, I say, anyone, whether it's clothes or boutique, I will just stay there. I will say, okay, no problem. When I'm ready, I will come. I don't told my father, told my mother, and I left because of my father and mother suffering. That's why I left there. And I told her, say, okay, I'm ready with the journey. Okay, where I will start? And I said, okay, take the transport and go there. And I reach the country, good 1 week. After I reach there in night, midnight. And I see, they are paying money. They are giving me to another woman. I not talk. When I reach there in night, I'm shocking. This place, there's to play music, everything. The thing is imagine me, what is the meaning of this? I think that I reason that is the boutique or is whatever, what they bring me come and do here. And I told the woman, say I should relax. The next thing, woman call me and I enter inside. He give me condom and Kleenex. I said, what is the meaning of this? This thing I've never seen in my life. What is the meaning of this? Say I should calm down. I said, I can't do this. They put me inside nylon house and inside grass. The grass is big. I said, I can't stay this place. What is the meaning of this? He said, I should relax. I said, I can't do this. Okay, the next day, he give me the thing again. I should go and hustle. He said, I should balance out 1.8 million. I said, Jesus, that money is very big. It's enough. And I told her, I said, no, I will balance her with by force. I said, I can't balance with this money. This money is enough money. Please, I want to go back to my parents. I want to go back. Can you allow me go back to my parents? He said, no, he will not allow me. Okay, and I'll go back to one place. I reasoned to myself, I cannot live here now. What to do? The work is different work. They told me there is boutique, there is another work. Now this work is different work. And I reason, and I left. 5 o'clock in early morning, I enter one long bus like that, and I leave. And I see one man like that now call me. He say, I'm very smart to come and do this kind of work here. And I beg him, please, can you help me? And I took me to one office like that. As they took me to the office, and I stay there, they feeding me, they do me everything. I'm chopping, they're closing me, everything there. Okay, the many 3 days now, I now look that is NAPTIP people that help us to land us in Nigeria. Please, and NAPTIP people, I thank you for what you've done. I appreciate you. Whenever you bring your money, more money will enter that pocket. I thank you. Please, my fellow guests, let them deceive you. Please don't go. I'm begging NAPTIP. I thank you for what you've done for my fellow guests. You rescue us to here. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Hello? Okay. Thank you, the Director General. At least from the clip that we have seen, we've seen that NAPTIP is not just sitting there answering an agency of government. That's a manifestation of at least what they've been doing. And DG, usually we're going to take your spoken. People will have reactions to what you've said. I was also going through your presentation. One of the things you said was that one of your challenges is the fact that other law sister agencies are not treating, they don't have adequate knowledge of human trafficking. But I've been following your organization for some time, and I know that part of your directorate, you have these sister agencies working with you. Is it that the ones that work with you have not been able to spread the news in their organizations? Because I thought that by being there with you, they should be able to, there should be a trickle-down effect as to the information on what you do, so that down the rungs of the ladder, you will know. But that's just it. Let's take the questions. We take them 4 at a time. Yeah. Who goes first? Steve Punch, Choji, AIT, and Ben TV. Steve.
Good morning, DG. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stephen Angbulu. I write for the Punch newspapers. I'm seeking clarification on updates on certain cases of human trafficking that the agency have carried out in the past. And we understand that sometime in January, there was the arrest, a joint operation of NAPTIP and other agencies secured the arrest of a notorious human trafficker somewhere in India. Her name is Joy Oka. Per that release in January, the agency said that Joy Oka is currently facing trial in an Indian court since January 7 after her arrest, and the victims are currently in safe houses. Also in December, just 1 month before that, there was also the arrest of a notorious human trafficker again. That one works within Nigeria and Spain. She goes by the name Mama Bobby, but her true name is Patricia Igbinovia. We understand that the suspect have been arraigned before Justice C.J. Aneke of the Federal High Court, Lagos, and she has also been remanded in custody of the Nigerian Correctional Services, while the matter had been adjourned till January 17th. And that's about 5 months after that. Could you give us updates on what is happening with these prosecutions at the moment? Thank you.
Thank you, DG Ma. My name is Timothy Choji. I write for Voice of Nigeria. You just stated a fact that trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar organized crime. I would like to know, how vulnerable are your staff to corruption, which might come in form of tips that run into large sums of money, as well as attacks on themselves? And then how protected are they? Thank you.
DG, my name is Yemi Adebayo from AIT. My first question, borders on your presentation. You outlined some of the challenges that the agency is going through, outlined the issue of funding and what have you. I just want to find out from you, because available data that we have shows that over 1 million Nigerians are still trapped in Cotonou, Mali, and some other countries of the world. And we understand that 50,000 out of these Nigerians are girls who have been trafficked outside there. What is the agency doing as regards? Because we hear stories of arrests here and there, but yet you cannot see the positive result of where it is coming from. Then I also want to find out from you,
Good afternoon, DG. My name is Ejiro Festos. I report for Ben Television. The question I have is, there are insinuations that your dragnet gives room for the bigger players in the trafficking industry to escape, that those that you mostly catch or those that you parade are the ones that cannot afford to pay their way through bribe. How would you react to this? Thank you.
So thank you everyone for your questions. I'll start with Punch. You requested for an update. Joy Oka, and like you rightly said, she's currently being prosecuted in India. And in terms of the rescued victims, yes, you're also right. They're in a safe house. The Nigerian High Commissioner to India actually called me when it happened. So we are in constant communication with India. And in the case of Mama Bobby, she's currently being prosecuted. Like you said, over the years, she's been responsible for trafficking a lot of girls from Nigeria to Spain. And during my presentation, I talked about us having 11 ongoing mutual legal assistance cases, and I said one involved Spain and the other Belgium. So this was the case I was talking about, Mama Bobby, and it's currently ongoing. For Voice of Nigeria, you talked about vulnerability of our staff in terms of corruption. Yes, over the years we've had compromises, which is something that is not just peculiar to NAPTIP. When you look at many ministries, departments, and agencies, you find staff also compromising. But the question is, are we putting in place mechanisms to check that? And my question would be yes. So last year we inaugurated what we call the Anti-Corruption Transparency Unit. So we have an active actus at the agency. We established a reforms unit, and actus is under that reform unit. And we also developed a code of conduct for all NAPTIP officers against corruption. And I think a few weeks ago, we got our scorecard from ICPC, and we were ranked about, I think, 77.5, which means we are complying to the anti-corruption standards. Then how are they protected? Since I came in, I've made sure that officers that work in investigation unit, actually legal and prosecution, and also we have a unit called the Rapid Response Squad. They handle cases of sexual and gender-based violence in the FCT. I've made sure that any case or any issue emanating from this key department are given priority. We got donation of buses last year from one of our partners, and I dedicated one for the legal unit. So they get priority. When they are going to court, they get priority. Then for investigation, RRS, we are getting a vehicle for them, investigation to attach the vehicle for them. So with what we have, I'm trying to make sure that I provide that enabling environment. We are also working on having mental health support for the staff. And this is something that most times we take for granted. So you find people focusing on the victims and the survivors. What about the mental health support of the staff working in that space? So we are working to also have mental support for all staff. Thank you. Then for AIT, you talked about what the agency is doing regarding repatriation. It is on record that the agency has participated in so many repatriations over the years from Mali, from Libya, you name it. Just in February, with the support of one of our partners, we were able to repatriate 15 women and girls from Mali. And from my presentation, we have over 20,000 women and girls stuck in Mali. And for us, with the work we do in NAPTIP, actually when it has to do with the trans-border human trafficking cases, when we do our initial triage, we do our intelligence, we rely on other sister organizations to help in repatriation. So when it comes to repatriation, that is where we get stuck. So we do our investigation, we identify where they are, we connect with them. So many times we guide them to safe houses in the country, or we guide them to IOM. IOM also has safe houses, then also NGOs. Like the reference that was made to the victims that were rescued in India. They actually sent, and somebody sent an email to my personal email, and we started working on it. And with our help, we were able to guide them to a safe house. No, we guided them to go report to the New Delhi police. New Delhi police came to their aid. They now guided them to go arrest the perpetrator. So that is what we do. But when it comes to repatriation, we don't have the funding for that. So that is usually where we get stuck. Just in January, I think, we rescued 2 victims in Abidjan. They were trafficked from Abuja. The woman trafficked them from Abuja to Abidjan. And the father reported, we started, Ministry of Foreign Affairs came, the ambassador in Ivory Coast called me, and we were working to see how we could rescue them. Before we could do anything, the father, one of them now called their father. The father now contacted agency to say they had escaped the perpetrator, and a good many Nigerian who was resident in Abidjan was helping them, was sheltering them. And in situations like this, when a stranger decides to do something good, you don't want to foist, victims on them. So in that particular situation, we had to facilitate their return back to Nigeria. So we have pockets of instances where we do that. That on a large scale, we really don't have the resources to do that. Then Ben TV, you talked about, what did you ask again? Oh, you said about prosecution that will go for the middlemen, who don't go for the high. But it was your question, right? Yeah, it was your question. So you said, okay, that collecting bribe to let the high profile. Well, that's not true. Nothing like that has happened under my watch. And like I said during the presentation, one of the challenges we have is victims not wanting to cooperate with us, because the traffickers are most times, family members. You hear stories of sisters trafficking sisters, brothers trafficking brothers, uncles trafficking nieces and nephews, even husbands trafficking their wives and children. So in most instances, one will rescue them, and international law provides that you don't force victims to cooperate with the system. What you do is you encourage them. And for us in NAPTIP, when we come, we debrief them. Okay, tell me the name. Oh, I don't remember. Oh, this. And the simple fact is that these people are being threatened. Most of them are threatened personally. Most of them, their families are being threatened. And like I said in my presentation, in addition to oath taking. So now, sometimes your trafficker might not force you to take oaths in Nigeria because they don't want you to suspect a thing. But when you get to the destination country, they make you swear oaths there. So they have their own foreign shrine where they'll make you swear oaths. And for those that don't operate in the oath-taking realm, they now video you nude and keep threatening you that, oh, if you report. We've had cases, tons of cases in NAPTIP. People say, oh, I've been threatened by my traffickers, or my family members have been threatened. So no, for anyone to insinuate that we're giving money for high profile, it's, like I said, it's a national crisis. It's a national crisis. So this is something that should concern everyone. The Mama Bobby's case is a high profile case. The one that we are prosecuting, the one that involves the mutual legal assistance case that I said, Belgium, that's a high profile case. So.
Okay, the next slide.
Arise Television, Sun, channels, all ladies. I want a guy to to blend it up. No guy. I will add one. No lady. All ladies. Please pass it on to them. I'll add one to it after that.
Thank you. Good morning. Mr. Biodri is about gender balance. You did mention, and well done for the work you do. My name is Adesua, and I work for Arise News. You mentioned that there's a surge in internal trafficking. I wanted to find out, despite all the work you do, is this surge only for the internal trafficking? Are we also seeing surge for the external? And what do you think is missing? Because you do all of this work, yet there's a surge. So it looks like something is missing. What is that? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gloria Omezioke from Channels. Mine is very simple. We've had a surge of kidnapping across the country. How is this really impacting on the surge in trafficking? And you've also been talking about funding, largely about how much underfunded your agency is. How big is this problem? Do you think the government is listening? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Juliana Taiwo Obaloyan of the Sun newspapers. I just want to know, are there mechanisms in place to monitor these people from being trafficked again? For those, maybe for those that you've been able to reintegrate with families, are there mechanisms in place to ensure they don't fall victim again? And then lastly, can we have an update on the state of the sex offenders register? Is it something you can talk about? Thank you.
I promised I was going to cap it. I know that your organization has been getting awards. I recall that about 8 years ago, the United States government honored your organization for being anti-human trafficking hero. Is that collaboration between your organization and other countries and agencies still subsisting? Thanks.
Which one? No collaboration between. Okay. All right. Arise, you asked about the surge in internal trafficking. What about external trafficking and what is missing? Yes, we have a surge in internal trafficking, and like I said in my presentation, most times we spotlight issues on external trafficking. But I know the data we had in NAPTIP, say 3 years old data now, the percentage was 75% of across the states, trafficking going on in Nigeria, then 23% within the states, then 2% across the borders. But of course, these are moving data. Each year, you get something new. And you said, what is missing? The truth is, when you talk about migration, it's a part of Africans. And because of the economic situation, people tend to move. So in my presentation, I talked about socioeconomic situations that NAPTIP does not have control over. And that has to do with issues of poverty, lack of educational opportunities, job opportunities, and also greed. You know, greed, people think, I want to go look for greener pastures, forgetting that the grass is only as green as you water it. So these are things, these are factors that we don't have control over, and these are root causes of trafficking in persons as well as smuggling of migrants. Then for channels, you talked about funding. I didn't really talk about funding because we all know that no matter the amount of money you get as an MDA in Nigeria, it will never be enough. Yes, we're struggling, but the important thing is making good use of what you have now. And we also have a lot of solid partnership. So NAPTIP has a lot of goodwill. We get a lot of support from the donor organization. We get a lot of support from even within the agencies ourselves. We get a lot of support from the armed forces in terms of capacity buildings. We've had tons and tons of capacity buildings from the military. So yeah, no matter the amount of money you give anyone, when you talk about trafficking in persons, I don't think it will ever be enough. Then Son, you talked about the mechanisms we have in place to ensure victims of trafficking are not re-trafficked. So for us in NAPTIP, what we do, obviously we have, I'm sorry? Oh, okay. We have a database of survivors that's passed through the system, and we try to, check in once in a while. Then we also offer a lot of rehabilitation and empowerment opportunities. And in my presentation, I also talked about NAPTIP over the years, sponsoring 16 victims of human trafficking to university. And we do that just to enhance their employability. So you have some of them who are interested in learning one trade or the other. Then you have some others who want to go to school. So if you want to go to school, we give you the opportunity. We fund the ones we fund, then we get other good-willing Nigerians to sponsor people who are willing to go to school. So basically, that's what we do to ensure that victims or survivors are not re-trafficked. Then, okay. Oh yes, sex offenders register. In 2019, the sex offenders register was launched by the government of Nigeria, and it is domiciled in NAPTIP. So basically, it's just a tool and mechanism for naming and shaming perpetrators. So right now, we have about how many? 500 and... Okay, so we have 650 reported cases right now uploaded. So it is accessible to the public, but only the convictions that are accessible to the public. And people now write to us, they contact us when they want to do background checks, especially if you are hiring a domestic staff. You don't want to hire a pedophile or someone who has a rape history. So people write to us to do background checks on people. Even schools right now, they also write to us to do background checks on potential teachers. So yeah, the sex offenders register is still there. We are still collaborating with service providers. We are collaborating with NGOs, with CSOs, and states. And about 7 states have also synchronized their sex offenders register to the National Sex Offenders Database. So it's growing. I think that one is only for FCT, right? Because if you add plus the states, it should be more. Yes, it's for all the states. So yeah, that's about it. Legal, that's ICT. How long does it take? Because the system is digitized. Yes.
Or databases, then if we get it, fine. If we don't have, it's what we have on the data that we check. But if your name is not on data, absolutely we say your name is not on our data.
Okay, all right. Yes.
My own question.
This is the third question you're asking.
Okay. Of course, from our online viewers, we have 2 questions.
Okay.
One, Mr. Prince Folorunsho Adegoke is asking, kudos DG for achievements. What more is being done to increase awareness creation and sensitization to educate people about human trafficking to aid prevention? That's one. Then Oge Funlola Modi is asking, She's one of the okay, it's outside the country, but she's monitoring what we're doing. That's nice. Okay, is asking, can she please talk about organs trafficking?
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
All right. In terms of sensitization, like I said in my presentation, we use different mechanisms. So community-centered sensitization. We work with schools. We work with traditional media. Also, we depend a lot on the media, which is why we revived the docu-series montage I talked about, NAPTIP on the Move. And that is basically to sensitize the public about the ills of human trafficking. And of course, we know that we can't have enough of sensitization in as much as we know that we reach millions and millions of our target audience. You still have that slim percentage of people that fall through the cracks. So we center our sensitization to the subnational level amongst the urban poor communities and also the rural areas and amongst young people, because those are the categories of people who are vulnerable to the antics of human trafficking. We've taken our sensitization to the road. We had what we call the Blue Bus campaign, was funded by IOM. This was a sensitization, a moving sensitization strategy. We started from Lagos, moved to Benin, then Delta State. So it's a big blue bus with IEC materials. Then you have our officers. They stop at motor parks, they stop at markets, just to sensitize people. So we partner a lot with NGOs, we partner a lot with faith-based organizations, we partner a lot with communities. So we've done a lot and we are still doing more, schools as well. Then in terms of organ trafficking, well, organ trafficking is of course one of the emerging trends, but this is an area that we still need to do research, real research. But last year, a report was released by Interpol, and that report highlights Nigeria as a origin, transit, and destination country for trafficking in persons for organ removals. Now, when we talk about organ trafficking, there are two sides of it. So you have criminal enterprises that deal solely in organ trafficking. So what they do is they go out, they seek for potential victims, they promise you jobs, they promise you scholarships, they promise you all sorts of nice things. Then when they get you to where you want to go to, then of course you are killed and your organs are taken. And this is basically because there's a global shortage for organs to be used for ethical transplants. We're talking about demand and supply. And that is what has driven that whole underground enterprise when it comes to organ trafficking. There was a report that was released by one of these UN agencies. In the black market, a kidney goes for over 250,000 US dollars. So it is a thriving business. And there's an entire value chain that has to do with organ trafficking. So you have recruiters, you have brokers. So recruiters are the ones that target vulnerable communities. So you go to probably a rural area and you target poor people. Then you have brokers, then you have medical personnel, you have medical institutions. So it's an entire value chain. So that's one part of it. Then the other part of it are people who get fished to donate their organs. So people targeted for organ trafficking are mostly adults because of course the organs are fully formed. So children are not being targeted. So they are, fully formed adults. Then you have cases of people willingly agreeing to donate a kidney or donate a liver or donate part of your lung. And it thrives because, yes, for a fee. It thrives because of misinformation and disinformation. So you have traffickers who come up to you and tell you, why are you suffering now? Come and donate your kidney. When, after all, as an adult, you only need one kidney to survive. And it's not true. They don't tell you that if you have pre-existing conditions, there's a possibility that if you donate one kidney, the other kidney will not even last. And they also tell you that there's a possibility that your kidney will regenerate, that is, will grow back. There's no scientific backing to that. So there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation driving organ trafficking. So we need to keep churning out information about it, because if an adult really wants to go donate his kidney, we can't stop that person, but we can only give that person the kind of information that if that person has, the person definitely won't bother plane to go donate their organ. So this is an area that we're still researching. That's the last slide. We're done. Okay.
My job at this point is just to appreciate Dr. Fatima Waziri-Azi and her team for coming. With her, Mr. Josiah Merele had been introduced, Mrs. Kende Akomolafe also, and Mr. Daniel Atokolo. Others are Mrs. Chinyere Dioga, Mujanatu Kamadin, Mr. Tatos Nezan, Lawrence Igo, Mr. Vincent Adekoye, and Samson AJ. That's the team that came with the DG. We thank you. We appreciate you for coming. DG, thank you for the informative session, and we hope that when we ask you to please come again, you will oblige us. Thank you. I thank all members of the Presidential Communication team who put this together, and other staff from the Office of the Chief of Staff to the President who have seen here. I want to appreciate all members of the press. If you are not here, this will not get disseminated, but you are here, and we thank you for coming and for disseminating appropriately. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you, sir.